Hey there, fellow knowledge seekers. You sent over a fun one
Oh, yeah.
from the Spiritual Seek. It's their Are You a True Freemason quiz. Gotta say, the title alone has me intrigued.
Yeah.
6 questions, multiple choice.
Oh, okay.
But it's all about getting into the headspace of what defines a Freemason.
Right.
Not just trivia.
Interesting.
Ready to see how your understanding stacks up.
I'm ready to dive in. And I
Yeah.
think what makes this quiz particularly interesting
Mhm.
is that true Freemason bit.
Yeah.
It almost implies there are levels of understanding within the organization itself, wouldn't you say?
Good catch.
Yeah.
Like maybe being a card-carrying member is one thing.
Uh-huh.
This quiz is testing for something deeper.
Exactly.
All right, let's get into it. First question.
Okay.
What is the primary purpose of Masonic ritual?
Okay.
Is it A, to preserve ancient traditions? B, to provide a structured framework for moral and ethical teachings?
Okay.
C, to impress outsiders with elaborate ceremonies? Or D, to maintain secrecy and exclusivity?
Right.
What's your gut feeling?
Well, knowing the Spiritual Seek, I suspect they're going for more substance than just appearances.
Right.
And the answer is indeed B, to provide a structured framework for moral and ethical teachings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the robes and secret handshakes.
No?
There's a deeper purpose to those rituals.
Exactly.
What does the explanation say
If so.
about how those rituals work towards ethical teaching?
It emphasizes that rituals are meant to guide members toward virtues like integrity, charity, and brotherly love.
Yeah.
It's like a step-by-step process of internalizing those values, not just hearing about them.
I can see that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how some religions use rituals to make abstract concepts more tangible.
Right.
Like think lighting candles or specific prayers.
Uh-huh.
It adds a sensory and emotional layer to the learning process.
Exactly. It's not just intellectual.
Right.
It's about embodying those principles through symbolic actions.
All right, on to question 2. This one asks,
Okay.
which historical figure is often associated with the legendary origins of Freemasonry?
All right.
Is it A, Julius Caesar,
Okay.
B, King Solomon, C, Genghis Khan, or D, Cleopatra?
All right.
I'll admit I had some misconceptions about this before digging in.
I bet you thought it was pyramids in ancient Egypt. And
Yeah.
It's a common one.
Oh, yeah.
But the correct answer is B, King Solomon.
So why Solomon? What's the connection to Freemasonry?
The key is the building of Solomon's temple.
Okay.
It represents those ideals of wisdom, strength, and beauty that Freemasonry values. Now,
Yeah.
the explanation is careful to point out this isn't about literal historical lineage.
Oh,
It's about the symbolism.
so it's like an allegory.
Exactly.
They're drawing inspiration from that story and the values it represents.
Precisely. It's about tapping into that rich history and using it as a foundation for their own moral and philosophical framework.
Okay, that clears up a lot.
Yes.
Question 3. What is the significance of the square and compasses symbol in Freemasonry? A, a navigational tool used by ancient Masons.
Okay.
B, a symbol representing moral principles like honesty and self-control.
Right.
C, a secret code used for communication.
Uh-huh.
Or D, a purely decorative element with no deeper meaning.
This one's a classic.
Right.
And the correct answer is, of course, B, a symbol representing moral principles like honesty and self-control.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've all seen that symbol,
Right.
but I'm guessing there's more to it than just being pretty.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The explanation gets into the specific meanings associated with each tool.
Okay.
The square, for example, represents fairness and honesty. It's about ensuring your actions are aligned with your principles,
Okay.
that you're squaring your conduct with your values.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
A visual reminder to keep yourself in check.
Exactly.
What about the compasses?
The compasses symbolize self-control,
Okay.
setting boundaries for yourself, and finding that balance between freedom and discipline.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm really starting to see how deep the symbolism goes in Freemasonry.
for sure.
It's like they've woven their values into these visual representations.
It's like a constant reminder of those core principles embedded in their everyday symbols.
Right. This next question is one I've always been curious about.
Okay.
How does Freemasonry view religious beliefs among its members?
Interesting.
Is it A, exclusive to one specific religion?
Okay.
B, members must believe in a supreme being, but can follow any religion? C, atheists are welcome?
Okay.
Or D, they have their own secret religion?
All right.
What's the truth here?
The answer that aligns with the spiritual Sikh's explanation and clarifies a lot of misconceptions out there is B, members must believe in a supreme being, but can follow any religion.
So they're not tied to any one specific religion.
Correct.
But they do require some kind of spiritual foundation.
That's right. And that's crucial to understanding Freemasonry's unique approach.
Yeah.
They aim to bridge religious divides, focusing on shared values and moral principles rather than specific doctrines.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It suggests a focus on what unites people spiritually rather than what divides them.
Exactly. It's about that common thread of belief in something greater than oneself.
Yeah.
Whatever form that might take.
Right.
Yeah. Welcome back, everyone. I think it's fascinating how even these first few questions from the Spiritual Sikhs quiz have already touched on some of the most fundamental aspects of Freemasonry.
Absolutely. And we haven't even gotten into the deeper explanations yet. There's so much to unpack here.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that first question about the purpose of rituals. You mentioned how it's not just about the outward show, but about internalizing values.
Exactly.
What else does the quiz reveal about how those rituals work?
Well, the Spiritual Sikh emphasizes that the structured framework of the rituals
helps to guide members towards those core virtues of Freemasonry.
Right.
Things like integrity, charity, and brotherly love.
Okay.
It's not just about healing about those values, but experiencing them through symbolic actions and ceremonies.
That makes me think of how apprenticeships work in other fields. It's not enough to just read a book about carpentry or watch someone else do it.
Right.
You have to actually get your hands dirty and learn through practice.
Yeah.
Maybe Masonic rituals function in a similar way.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. It's about embodying the principles through action and experience, not just theoretical knowledge.
Right.
And speaking of historical inspiration, the second question about King Solomon really dives into that.
Okay.
The explanation clarifies that it's not about claiming a direct lineage from Solomon, but rather about drawing inspiration from the symbolism of his temple.
Right. It's not about historical accuracy, but rather the values that the temple represents.
Exactly.
Wisdom, strength, and beauty.
It's like they're saying these are the ideals we strive for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by connecting themselves to that powerful story, they're tapping into a rich tradition of symbolism and meaning.
Yeah.
It's like building on a foundation that's already imbued with those timeless values.
And that brings us to another powerful symbol.
Yes.
The square and compasses. The quiz reveals that they represent moral principles, like honesty and self-control. I'm really struck by how deliberate they are about encoding those values into everything they do.
The Spiritual Sikh's explanation is really insightful here.
Yeah.
It explains that the square, which represents fairness and honesty, is a reminder to keep your actions square with your principles.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like a visual cue to check in with yourself.
Exactly.
And make sure you're living up to those values. And what about the compasses?
Right.
How do they fit into that moral framework?
The compasses symbolize self-control.
Okay.
That idea of setting boundaries for yourself and finding that balance between freedom and discipline.
So it's not just about being good in a general sense, but about actively cultivating those specific virtues.
Yes.
They've really thought this through.
Absolutely. They're not leaving it to chance.
Right.
They're providing tools and symbols to help guide their members on that path of personal growth.
Okay, let's dive into a question that often stirs up a lot of debate and misconception.
Right.
How Freemasonry views religion. The Spiritual Sikh is crystal clear.
Okay.
That members must believe in a supreme being, but can follow any religion. What's intriguing is that this simple requirement has caused so much controversy over the years.
Right, because it challenges people's assumptions about what it means to be part of a group or organization. Freemasonry doesn't fit neatly into the categories people often use to define belief systems. It's not a religion itself, but it requires a spiritual foundation. And it's open to individuals from diverse faiths, emphasizing common ground rather than doctrinal differences.
I'm starting to see how that approach might appeal to people who are seeking a spiritual connection, but maybe don't feel entirely at home in a traditional religious setting.
It's like they're saying, you don't have to check your individual beliefs at the door.
Yeah.
But we do need to agree on this fundamental principle of a higher power.
Right.
And that shared belief becomes a unifying force.
Okay.
Allowing them to bridge those divides that often separate people.
It's a really fascinating approach.
Yeah.
Almost radical in a world where religious differences are so often used to divide people.
And that emphasis on unity ties in nicely with our next question.
Okay.
The role of degrees in Freemasonry.
Yeah.
The Spiritual Seek's explanation describes them as levels of learning and progression within the organization.
So not about power or hierarchy.
Correct.
But about deepening your knowledge and understanding. It's
Yeah.
like a spiritual and philosophical education program.
Exactly. It's a journey of self-discovery and intellectual exploration, with each degree offering new insights into Masonic principles and symbolism.
Okay.
The quiz specifically mentions the 3 basic degrees:
Okay.
Enter Apprentice, Fellow Craft, and Master Mason.
I'm picturing this elaborate system of secret knowledge being revealed gradually as you progress through the degrees.
Right.
Like each level unlocks new mysteries and teachings.
Yeah, it's a great way to visualize it.
Yeah.
While the specifics are kept private, the
Right.
general idea is that each degree builds on the previous one,
Okay.
leading to a more profound understanding of Freemasonry's core teachings.
Okay, last question for this part.
All right.
The distinction between regular and irregular Freemasonry.
Okay.
The explanation focuses on those landmarks that define legitimate Masonic practice.
Right.
It mentions how regular bodies adhere strictly to those traditions.
Right. It's like they see themselves as the guardians of the true essence of Freemasonry. Think of the landmarks as the bedrock principles that have guided the organization for centuries.
So it's not just about following the rules for the sake of it, but
Yeah.
about preserving the integrity of the tradition.
Exactly. They believe those landmarks are crucial to maintaining the authenticity and consistency of Freemasonry across different lodges and regions.
But it's important to remember
Yeah.
that even within regular Freemasonry,
Yeah.
there can be diversity of thought and interpretation.
That makes sense.
No organization is perfectly monolithic.
Right.
There's always going to be some variation in how people understand and apply those core principles.
Welcome back. It's amazing how much ground we've covered already,
I know, right?
just by unpacking these 6 questions from the Spiritual Seek.
And I feel like we're getting a real sense of what makes Freemasonry tick, you know?
Yeah.
Those core values,
Yeah.
the emphasis on symbolism, that commitment to personal growth through structured learning.
One thing that keeps striking me is how deliberate they are about using symbols to convey meaning.
Totally. Like that square and compasses emblem.
Right.
It's not just a cool logo.
Yeah.
It's a whole philosophy encoded into visual form.
And the quiz explanation does a great job of breaking down those individual elements.
Right. Like the square representing honesty.
Mm-hmm.
That idea of making sure your actions square with your principles.
Yeah.
I'm going to start using that in everyday life.
I think we could all benefit from that reminder. And the compasses symbolizing self-control.
Right.
Finding that balance between freedom and discipline.
It's a powerful concept.
It really is.
And then there's that whole other layer of symbolism with the connection to King Solomon's temple. It's like they're tapping into this ancient well of wisdom and inspiration.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the quiz, it reminds us that it's not about literal historical lineage,
Right.
but rather about the ideals that the temple represents.
Yeah. Wisdom, strength, and beauty.
It's aspirational.
Totally. It's like they're setting a high bar for themselves and their members.
Yeah.
And speaking of aspirations,
Yeah,
that degrees system is fascinating.
it is.
It's not about hierarchy or power,
Right.
but about progressing through levels of understanding.
It's like an ongoing educational journey
Right.
unfolding over time.
Yeah.
Each degree unlocks new insights into Masonic principles and symbolism. The Spiritual Seek's quiz mentions those 3 basic degrees:
Right.
Entered Apprentice, Fellow Craft, and Master Mason.
I'm picturing these elaborate initiation ceremonies,
Yeah.
secret handshakes, hidden chambers.
So some of that might be true, but the quiz emphasizes that the core purpose is about deepening your knowledge and understanding.
Okay.
It's about becoming a more well-rounded individual,
Right.
both morally and intellectually.
It makes me wonder what those higher degrees might entail.
Yeah.
What kind of secret knowledge is being passed down through generations of Freemasons?
That's the mystery, isn't it? While the specifics are kept private, we can infer that they delve even deeper into Masonic philosophy, symbolism,
Right.
and perhaps even esoteric knowledge.
Okay, before we get lost in a rabbit hole of speculation,
Yeah.
I want to circle back to that distinction between regular and irregular Freemasonry.
Okay.
The quiz highlighted how regular bodies stick to those traditional landmarks, those fundamental principles that define legitimate practice.
And that raises an interesting question. In a world that's constantly changing,
Right.
how does an organization like Freemasonry balance preserving tradition with adapting to modern times?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Is strict adherence to those landmarks essential for maintaining the integrity of Freemasonry? Or does it risk becoming too rigid and out of touch?
It's a delicate balance,
Right.
and there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
But it's a tension that exists within any organization
Right.
that has a long and storied history.
Well said.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Freemasonry, inspired by the Spiritual Seek's intriguing quiz, I'm left with one final thought.
Okay.
If the quiz asks, are you a true Freemason?
Yeah.
What does that suggest about how Freemasonry views itself and the levels of understanding within the organization?
I think that's a question each listener should ponder on their own. Does being a true Freemason mean more than just membership?
Right.
Does it involve a genuine commitment to those principles of brotherly love, charity, and truth?
Yeah.
Or perhaps it's about that ongoing pursuit of knowledge and self-improvement, that journey through the degrees that never truly ends.
Food for thought indeed.
Yeah.
And speaking of journeys, if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, be sure to check out the Spiritual Seek for more thought-provoking quizzes and insights.
Absolutely.
This was just a taste of what they offer.
And remember, the quest for knowledge is an endless adventure.
Right.
Keep exploring, keep questioning,
Yeah.
and keep diving deeper.
Until next time, fellow knowledge seekers.